today to this installment of Questions and Answers. There's been a lot of people who have, down through the years, approached me accusing Christians of being phobic. So I want to deal with that subject today. You see, fear is one of approximately 7 common emotions. It's a normal response the human body shows when danger is perceived. Now, customarily, acute anxiety is considered a negative emotion, and yet it actually serves an essential role in keeping a person safe. You see, this feeling allows an individual to mobilize an appropriate reply when facing potential peril. Ordinary fears don't interfere with a person's ability to work a job, attend social outings, or enjoy various types of relationships. But phobias are a much different issue altogether. Phobias are persistent. They're extreme, they're unrealistic, and they're unrelenting fears. It's a fear of a thing, a person, an animal, an activity, or a situation. Some of the top phobias would be the fear of snakes, spiders, needles, and flying. You see, people oftentimes mistake a phobia for an exaggerated fear, but that would be really a misunderstanding and a misrepresentation of the reality. People who struggle with phobias frequently feel humiliated or embarrassed about their symptoms. And so because of that, in order to avoid anxious situations or behaviors, these people have the tendency, those that suffer with phobias, to circumvent the triggers for the phobia. And oftentimes that results in a life of reclusion, living ostracized from society. This disorder is no small matter, and it should never be trivialized for ulterior purposes. You see, phobias manifest themselves with any number of physical symptoms that can be altogether debilitating. And some of those symptoms are tremors, uncontrollable crying, heart palpitations, sweaty palms, tightness of the chest, difficulty breathing, nausea, not to mention a whole battery of other symptoms. Frequently, though, these issues result in somebody being diagnosed with a panic disorder. Now, it functionally paralyzes the victim, and those suffering from these problems often seek help through psychiatry and also psychotherapy. Now, many of the terms that we hear today used in the world of social media and political agendas often end with the word phobic. And they're used in a way that is patently false. They are aimed at people who disagree with particular behaviors. If somebody expresses disagreement with the trendy narrative on homosexuality, Islam, illegal immigration, or transgenderism, they are slapped with the identity of being homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, and transphobic. And in each one of these labelings, most of the time, it is a dishonest tag, casually classifying something a person disagrees with as a phobia, or labeling that person as a phobic outside of a scientific context is just dishonest. It is a misuse of the word and actually serves to misrepresent then an individual's point of view. Undoubtedly, the term phobia has been hijacked by many people driven with these social agendas that disagree with traditional morality in America. It is a blatant attempt of cancel culture to eliminate dissenting voices. And so by adding the suffix phobic to the end of a word, it is intended to brand a person as either a bigot or intolerant, and perhaps both. The fear of being labeled prejudiced is designed to force somebody to change their position, or at the very least, silence the expression of their opinion in the public forum. Unfortunately, this scare tactic is proving to be extremely effective. There are thousands upon thousands of traditionalists who have determined that the price of voicing their belief in decency is not worth the consequences. And this silence is tragic, especially seeing that such a labeling is fundamentally flawed. You see, being branded phobic for expressing a principled disagreement is logically invalid. Instead of providing substantive responses to opposing opinions, cancel culture resorts to misusing words and identities. And I think that pointing out such a tactic can actually strengthen the position of the person being accused if they know how to counter such a ploy. And so that's what we want to do today in this presentation. Labeling somebody a phobic is typically nothing more than name calling, a common practice on elementary school playgrounds. In logic, this is identified as an ad hominem argument. It is an illicit method for engaging a person with whom one disagrees. You see, ad hominem occurrences openly attack somebody for what they believe, or more subtly, they cast doubt on that person's character or that person's attributes for the purpose of discrediting their argument. The result of an ad hominem attack can be to undermine someone's belief, and this is really what it does, without ever actively engaging in a conversation about the subject at hand. Labeling a person as phobic is also irrelevant as far as distractions go from the subject at hand. It not only attempts to ignore the subject by discrediting the person, but it also tries to discredit the subject through a practice known as a red herring. A red herring is an informal fallacy. It's a misleading statement, a question, or argument that's intended to redirect a conversation away from its original subject. It's a cleverly disguised, irrelevant statement, oftentimes interjected into an argument for the purpose of moving the topic into a more contentious arena. Its goal is to confuse the issue and in the process change the subject. Marking people who disagree with transgenderism activism, Islamic radicalism, homosexual crusading, and illegal immigration politicization, and more, one could say, calling somebody phobic is just plain dishonest. Not to mention, it's stupid. Many in society want to avoid rational discourse, and to do that, they resort to calling people names that are unfair, immature, unrelated, and totally irrelevant. In most cases, being called phobic is merely an illegitimate attack. American society, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it, is fighting for its moral survival. Christians must demonstrate a willingness to accept public ridicule if positive change is to result. Being misrepresented is nothing new for people who dwell in and belong to the household of faith. Jesus constantly suffered social stigma as he was falsely accused of treason and sorcery, blasphemy, and seditions. It is a typical practice of those in spiritual and ethical opposition to the standards of morality enunciated through the teachings of Scripture to incorporate these kinds of attacks. Disagreeing with homosexuality, transgenderism, abortion, and a myriad of other morally objectionable actions does not require cognitive behavioral therapy or exposure treatment or response treatment. Those are treatments that are given to people who suffer with phobias. Disagreeing with somebody is not a phobia. It is an expression of an individual standard. And being labeled a phobic because you disagree with the trends that are now unfolding in American society is illegitimate, to be sure.